Boom, hello and welcome to the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Byron Rodgers. This podcast is dedicated to the executive protection practitioner, the private security professional. In this podcast, we're going to talk about the mental, emotional, psychological, physiological fitness that goes into being an efficient and effective executive protection agent. Whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're a mom that's looking at how to protect her children, or a father that's focused on how to protect his family, I believe this podcast has something for all of you. We might even get into some tales from the crypts of true Hollywood stories from time to time. I'm doing this podcast because I feel the reality of this job is simple. If you really want to be good at executive protection, it's more than just a job. It really is a lifestyle. And those of you who've been in the game for any serious amount of time, you already know what I'm saying is true. So if that sounds interesting to you, enjoy the show. Out. Boom, what's going on, you guys? Byron Rodgers here with Bravo Research Group, a private security company out of Southern California, and Executive Protection Lifestyle, this podcast. I'm here today with Ian Strimbeck of Runenation. Did I say it right, man?
Close, Strimbeck, but
Strimbeck. Okay, cool.
Potatoes, whatever. It's all.
He's gracious.
It's all good.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to this. We have crossed paths a few times, but I think really what really drew me to you is your values, bro. Like I've just kind of like looked at your content, and I've been like, besides the fact that we're both Marines, you know, there's always,
absolutely.
But man, your values are on point, and I think, you know, that's something that I think that the industry could benefit from. So it's an honor to have you here, man.
I appreciate it. The honor is all mine. I appreciate you having me on the podcast. Any time that I get on any type of podcast, I always value it because it's more, information that I can get out to the general public, which is always a win for me. So I appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that, you know, that information, like I remember one of the things I saw on your website was about educating. That's like I noticed you were tying a lot of stuff to that. We'll talk a little bit about it. Go ahead, hit it.
Oh, no. I was just saying because, we'll get into this probably more later, but I always pride myself on being an educator, a teacher over a quote unquote instructor. And at the end of the day, it's all semantics. I understand that, just like, with my name, tomatoes, Strimbeck's all the same. But at the end of the day, how I kind of value it is that instructor is somebody who shows up and just regurgitates stuff off of a clipboard, and an educator as a teacher is actually able to decipher the different types of learners that are out there. So obviously you have the auditory learners, the visual learners, the kinesthetic learners that learn by actually doing, and then that's really about it. And just understanding all those various types of learners is going to make you that much better at getting your information across versus just reading it off a clipboard, hoping for the best. Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. No, that's deeper. That's much deeper than I think a lot of people take it. I think a lot of people make the mistake of expecting others to learn and soak up information the way that they do. And thus, kind of the instruction loop is lacking in some areas. So, I mean, sounds like with your instruction and with your teaching and your education, you're delivering it on a number of different levels that other people may not be. They may or may not be. So that's what's up, man. That's good to go.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Heck yeah, brother. So taking it from the top, man, the infamous question. We were just at SHOT Show a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I hate this question, but it's like one of those pertinent questions. It's like, I meet a guy, we're kind of sniffing each other's butts, you know what I'm saying? They're doing the thing. Yeah. He's got to, and like someone's got to ask it, or like you get on a security detail, you get in the back of the chase, and everyone's kind of like looking at each other. We find a way to do it. Some guys like just drop it in, but anyways, what's your background, man? Where you come from?
Sure. So I was in the Marine Corps from 2006 to 2010. During that time frame, I was a line infantryman. So I was with 3rd Battalion, 2nd Marine Division out of Camp Lejeune, Lima Company, 2nd and 3rd Platoon. I was in every facet of fire team, from the infamous SOG gun on my first deployment, and then obviously Grenadier and team leader. And spent all 4 years of that, did deployments overseas to Iraq and all over the Mediterranean. Then after leaving in 2010, I immediately went and used my GI Bill. So I used my terminal leave up as best as I could. So I got out earlier than I intended. So I got out, let's say in April. And by that fall, I was already starting in school. And over the summer, I worked for a friend of mine, dad, who was who owned his own side business doing carpentry. So I kept busy the entire time. And as soon as I went in, I went to look for a major in communications with a concentration in journalism, just because I've always had a fascination and a passion for writing. Like obviously I enjoy talking in front of others, hence, what I do for a living. But I really like to take my time and slow down and really get my thoughts across on not necessarily pen and paper, but, in modern day and age, more or less a keyboard and screen. So I pursued that from 2010, 2014. And during that time frame, I also worked for a locally based executive protection firm at the greater Boston area. And during that, I worked multiple details in the Boston area. And also during that time frame, I also did the infamous, working, let's say, less than desirable bars at various hours of the night in less than desirable areas of Boston.
Yeah,
and that was when exactly, yeah. And I also got my, let's say, feet wet doing very basic firearms instruction, because in Massachusetts, you basically have to take a called a basic firearms course in order to apply for your license. And that's where I kind of started to kind of find my passion or my purpose, more or less, as to what I want to pursue.
That is what's up, man. Good to go. I love how you break into the Marine Corps and you just give it all to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, whenever I say my stuff too, I'm like, yeah, I was 3-1 Lima Company Weapons Platoon. I'm an 03.
Well, you know how people are in today's day and age, man. Like, people like to, I've come across so many people that are so vague about what they did. And it's like, right. Dude, if you were supply, you were supply. If you were your motor T, like, be proud of what you did. I understand why people, feel the need to lie. Like, I have plenty of friends that, were, Rangers or SF, and they joke and say that, I'm a special forces groupie, just because those are the guys that I surround myself with. And yeah, I am. I'm not going to go and tell you that. I was basic recon because because I was attached to them. It's like, no, I was a grunt. And people are like, oh, so where'd you get most of your training? To be honest, most of the training that I learned I use now, I got paying money out of my own pocket after I left the military. I'm not going to go and say that the military is horrible training, but it's definitely, especially in the line of work that I was, definitely, break it down Barney style, and it's very archaic and indoctrinated. But the one thing that Marine Corps did teach me was definitely having a developing mindset to never quit, to always push forward, and obviously to have lots of patience, as you know.
Yeah, man. No, absolutely. No, I think, with the military, and I didn't realize this till I got out. Man, you said like so many things in there that are worth talking about. Yeah, like there's the people that are trying to shroud kind of what they've done, and like, to me, I'm like, cool, like, you were Ghost Stalker, Ninja Master, Jedi, freaking GI guy. What can you do now? Because in my industry, like, not everybody's staying sharp. I'm on a number of security details, and like, I gotta pull teeth, twist arms, and like push guys hard to even get them to come to a shooting competition or get them out to the range. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So guys in my world, they let their skills fall apart quite frequently. So, I might be talking to like Delta Force Night Stalker guy, but what matters to me is, what can you do when we push off today and we break that line of departure? If, heaven forbid, it is the blue moon, the full blue moon, when something actually happens. Yeah, like,
straight up Sicario.
Yeah, right? Yeah. If it happens to be that one day, so so to me, like, I'm like, okay, cool, I dig your background, respect, but then it's like, all right, like, if we go to the range, when's the last time you touched your weapon? I know this is true. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I look at you draw your weapon. I look at you, deal with your weapon, and I can tell how intimate you are with it. I can tell if you've been training, if you've been, getting some dry firing in. I can tell if, maybe, you guys need to work on your relationship a little bit. No shame in your game if you're at the range getting it in. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But
no, it's too prevalent in this community of people relying on what they did to determine what they're currently doing. And like you just said, all well and good if you were in CAG or the teams or dev group for 2 decades, been on 10, 15 deployments, all well and good. But we'll get into this later. But outside of the basic fundamental mechanics of how you're integrating with the firearm, tactics constantly change. If you got out 20 years ago, you are like 2 decades behind the power curve. So, completely out of it. And I feel like a lot of guys solely rely on that, not only to market themselves, but to hold some form of legitimacy in this space. Yeah. And that's why I have no shame, to tell people about what I did, but I very briefly talk about, not that I'm ashamed of it, but it has no bearing no hold or bearing onto what I'm providing for my customers or my clients.
No, 100%, man. And I think the military is really good for giving you like an engine. Yeah, I mean, like if I'm dealing with another Marine, like I know, like, okay, this dude knows how to go hard. Like this dude, his killer instinct should be pretty sharp. Like I can depend on this cat on certain stuff. I can speak with this individual in a certain way without worrying about his emotions and his feelings. Yeah, I mean, like there's certain things I can expect and be like, wow, we instantly, like they say, affection is reserved for peers. You know what I mean? So it's like, like I got to deal with everyone a certain way, and like we can be couth and professional and all this. But then, like if I'm dealing with a Marine, I know, like, hey, dude, if we got to go hard, we got to go hard, and he's gonna be right there with me, and like we're gonna hold that freaking line. It's awesome. Or even if I'm dealing with like, a recon guy or a SEAL or whatever, like I don't know their ethos as well, but I'm gonna be able to like have some gauge of expectations. That's about it. Yeah, I mean, I love it when I go to a shooting competition and some 16-year-old girl smoking everybody. Not that shooting competitions are the litmus test for tactical proficiency, but you know what I mean? Or some like dudes like comes off of his match, like comes off of his turn to shoot, and it's like, well, what do you do? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm a jeweler. You know what I mean? Like the best guy the whole entire day. Yeah, I'm a plumber. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, like I had to learn real quick, like when I got out kicking it with my boys, just because I did some stuff, like, dude, I'm still trying to catch up with a lot of the guys that got me into the game,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's that constant chase as to what should push you forward, should be your vehicle that propels you, so to speak.
Yeah, heck yeah, dude. Always chasing that edge, like that potential always moves, man. We got to move with it. So,
absolutely.
Now, that's all good stuff, man. I'm glad we talked about that, man. It's got to keep guys on their toes. We got to know, like, yo, your edge will get dull. Yeah, I'm saying, like, if you don't sharpen that trash, like, there's no participation trophies in this game. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to find out. You don't want to find out. You know what I mean? Like, you want to sharpen that thing as frequently.
Yeah, and it's like I tell my students in my classes, like, no one that was viciously assaulted and had brute violence come their way stepped outside their house that morning and was like, today is a good day to absolutely almost have my life taken from me. You don't know. I don't have a magic crystal ball that's going to tell you when my fight happens or your fight happens or anybody else. So to kind of just hope and improvise that that day will never come, or you'll just improvise those skills on the spot, just because it's like the same people that you see watch in bars like a mixed martial arts fight with the UFC, and they're like trying to cheer them on, like give them comments, and it's like, dude, when was the last time you've been on the mat? When was the last time you had a bag? Like, dude, you're getting out of breath, you're screaming at the TV, so why should you be adding your 2 cents at all?
No,
and again,
absolutely.
At the end of the day, we're in America. It's free speech. Do whatever you want. But that's just coming from my opinion. So
no, I absolutely dig it, man. I absolutely dig it. And that's the truth. It's that's the truth, man. So, Runenation, what does this mean?
So, for this name, I wanted something very ambiguous and something that didn't have anything tactical or firearms related into it. The reason for that is because, again, it's so prevalent in this space, and everybody has something tied to, whatever, firearms, tactical, whatever it may be. And I wanted something not only to stand out, because obviously it brings up questions such as this. So it's a good opener for conversation, and for consulting reasons or whatever. There's a lot of as you know, in the space that you're in, there's a lot of bigger corporate companies that obviously don't, that may potentially not want to do business with you because of the verbiage in your company name. So I wanted something that, like I said, was very ambiguous, didn't have any, ties to anything specific, because, as you know, which we'll get into later, it's not just about the gun specifically. And also, to get really, deep with this, runes are basically a ancient, we'll say, alphabet of sorts in the Scandinavian region. They're basically symbols that are, I guess you'd say, similar to Mandarin, Chinese, where each letter or symbol has a meaning and a phonetic pronunciation behind it. So that is, where my heritage come from. And I'm, I don't care, specifically where you come from, but everybody should be proud of, where your lineage came from, especially in today's day and age. You can't say this or that or be proud of this. And at the end of the day, regardless of your thoughts or ideals on violence and personal protection, all that, even if you are so, again, not to get into politics, but so left that you're, completely against guns, you're completely against, violence or whatever. The fact of the matter is your ancestors fought and died and bled and battled with clans and tribes across ancient tundra for thousands of years before you to get you where you are today, to continue your bloodline to where you are now. Yeah. So regardless of where you came from, I feel like people kind of forget that as to what was needed for you to currently be living here. Yeah,
experiencing what you've got.
And it's also, it's hard to see, but it's also what's on my hands as well. So I figured, if something is as important to put on my hands, I might as well try to incorporate it into my company name. And that's where I actually got the logo, which is on my hand as well, which is what's called the August humor, or the Helm of Awe, which was worn as a symbol of protection before, those Nordic warriors went into battle, as a sign of protection, and to protect themselves against those who want to do them harm. So.
Outstanding, man. Yeah, I was going to ask you what that tattoo was, because I'd be seeing it and all your stuff.
Absolutely.
And I was like, all right, but you already went there. That's what's up, man. So the Runenation, so the rune portion of it represents kind of is it an alphabet, or is it like a people?
Yeah. So the technical term of it is you have the elder and the younger Futhark alphabet. So this is part of the elder, which was obviously the oldest form of that language. And for a quick example, so the one on my pinky is being proud of your ancestry. This one is being proud of or for mastery. This one for justice and judgment, and then this one is for strength. So very kind of basic stuff like that as to what it stands for. And nation, obviously, because I travel all around the United States teaching, kind of an all-encompassing kind of filler there, I guess you'd say.
That's what's up, man. So then are those, if you had a value system, is that your values, what you had on your fist?
Yeah. And then, like on the other one, you have, frugality, you have endurance, you have protection, then you have one for healthy relationships. So obviously you need that.
Yeah. Oh man, relationships. I always say everything that comes in and out of your life will come through relationships, both positive and negative.
Absolutely.
And I've kicked it around and thought about it, and generally that's the game, man. In business.
Well, see, the crazy part is, and I don't know why it's so hard for people to understand, but and I said this in the past, and I will, continually say it until I'm blue in the face, but it costs $0.00 to be a good person.
Right.
Just that simple. And I think too many people just overlook that in lieu of, narcissism or an unhealthy and untamed ego that hasn't been put in its place yet, or just simply they're more worried about the amount in their bank account.
Yeah, man. Or insecurity, it's ego. Yeah, all the ego stuff. And honestly, like, I've talked about that before on here, man. Like, good dude currency, man. Like, you get a call. I need some guys. I got one or two dudes. I got one or two guys I can send you. What about this guy, Jeff? He's a good dude. The second you say he's a good dude, they're like, solid. If you say he's a good dude.
And that's your word. Yeah. Your word is everything. And when I was and again, not to go on a tangent here, but I feel like we're going on a bunch of tangents with this. But
podcast is about going on tangents, bro. Like, spray all your information out into the universe. It's going into the private security industry. Yeah, man. Just give it to them.
That was probably not my biggest issue when I transitioned out of the military, was coming to the understanding that out here, unfortunately, word isn't everything. You can't sometimes hold somebody to their word. And that was a big, and it still kind of is a big issue for me to get across. Something as simple as, I get a DM, oh yeah, man, I'll totally be at that class. And this is, probably 3 months out prior to the class. And then, I, get back probably like a month out, I hit him up like, hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, it says this thing came up.
Yeah.
Like, I get it, things come up, but I'm calling bullshit.
Yeah, right.
Just because, I saw you post, yesterday about how you just bought a new LaRue with a 1:6 optic and, a pair of dual tube white phosphorus night vision. And now you're telling me that you can't afford the class. Like, I'm calling BS.
Yeah. No, and you know what it is, man? Like, I mean, first of all, it's a certain frequency. Like, when you hear the person or you even see the text message, you just instantly, something in you is like, here we go. Like, I put on the lens, like, I've got to sit through this. I'll be nice about it. But like, I get it. It's just where you are. God bless you. You know what I mean? Like, but you just kind of know. And I completely dig it. When I got out of the same thing, man, like, I missed it. Like, well, because I was raised in like all feminine household, 5 sisters. We had a shit and a pom-poo-poo, my grandma, my auntie, my mom. The women raised me, and I think they did a pretty decent job. I mean, by the grace of God, like, I learned my man stuff from like God and the Marine Corps, and my dad was, he was in another country. I wouldn't visit him. He'd like just tighten me up when I go down there. But yeah, man, like, learning, I loved like the man law that was in the Marine Corps, when I was in there from 04 to 08. And I got out because that was going away. You know what I mean? Like, I was like,
no, it was
they are ruining this.
Gone by the time I got out, completely gone. But you have PSCs talking back to, Lance Corporals with 2 deployments on their belt because they can, because they know they'll go and cry to first sergeant, and then next thing you know, that salty Lance Corporal's getting chewed out by the first sergeant.
So it's like mothering. You have to like mother your Marines now. Like, you can't teach them like the way of like men, and like, it's not a man's club anymore.
You mean like screwing up and getting hazed in a shower with full NBC on while they're pulling bleach in the shower?
Yes, with your moonbeam, trying to plot points. Yes, exactly what I'm talking about. Verbatim, dude. Yes. Oh man, but you know what? It builds character, makes a man out of you. You're a little more fearless as long as you survive it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, but dude, you got more fight in you, and you know what? Your boys know what you're capable of when you guys are over there.
Absolutely.
It's weird, man, and crazy and intense. Man, that was the beauty of that. And I literally went there to help develop my masculinity. I know it. And yeah, man, towards the end when I was like, I've got to lead these men from the front, but I've got to mother these guys. Like, I got to talk to them about stuff. I was like, okay, well, you know what? I can't go to war with a man who I don't like know his soul. You know what I mean? Like, he needs to hold up. He needs to hold up under the stress of me raising my voice, or even maybe we get physical, heaven forbid. Yeah, I mean, and maybe he doesn't break, heaven forbid, and maybe we go on ahead and get a little bit closer because that's how men get close. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Men get close through adversity, regardless of all the stuff you hear in the news. Mm-hmm. That is how men develop close relationship, is through some form of adversity.
A pressure cooker, the grinder, the crucible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So no, that's what's up. And then you mentioned something else, like hardware and software, man. You know, like I've had a lot of questions come at me, and maybe you can put your spin on this. People being like, yo, what kind of gun should I buy? What kind of, like, you know, optic is the best, this, that, and the next, cookie burger. And I'm like, you know, that's great. But I stand with the whole premise that, like, rookies spend money on hardware, professionals spend money on software. Like, really, you should be able to pick up pretty much any gun and whip it on if you need to, unless it's like foreign. Yeah. You know what I mean? What gun should you buy? It's kind of like, what training should you get? And in my opinion, is like the very next, if not maybe an equally important question. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like too many people are just mimicking what they see on social media, more specifically IG, just because of how huge the gun industry is on there. And you know, it's a double-edged sword, because it's awesome, because not only does it get, you know, information across from you or I or other great companies that are out there, but it also inadvertently makes people think that they need to just mimic mimic their purchases of what they see other people running, even though they may have not even been to a class yet. And just like you said, you should be able to pick up any gun stock and run it in a class. And I've had students do that in the past, and they do perfectly fine. And I have more issues with the students that have the tricked out gun with, you know, the weapons light and the comp and the red dot and the hair trigger and all the extra bells and whistles. And that's fine, because I'll be lying if I told you that my teaching gun isn't like that. But you should build that good foundation first, because, again, like I tell my students in the class, you can have this bomb mansion with, you know, your movie theater and your jacuzzi and an indoor pool with the, you know, retracting floor and, you know, this ridiculous kitchen with, you know, heated flooring and all that. But if you had some bozo come in and make a crap foundation for you, that house is going to crumble at some point.
It's trash.
So the same thing with your training. If you want to have this flashy gun, but you don't even know how to draw the pistol out of the holster, you're going to have a hard time, my friend.
Yeah.
So if you want to build the foundation first with that stock gun, that's fine. And then anything that you get afterwards is just going to be an added advantage that you're going to have over the bad guy.
Yeah, 100%. And something I'm seeing a lot on IG, on the EPL page, like I'm posting all these like real world, like combat situations. There is a stark and expensive difference between trained people and untrained people. Man, like, surviving these encounters, you can tell when someone has some training. You can tell when they needed a little more training in certain areas. Like, man, that dude, like, they went hands-on, or this is getting intense. This individual can't bridge the gap from intense to shooting someone, and now they've shot someone. Or, you know, this individual has some training and has taken this corner properly. This guy's just walking up to the door, boom, he's done. You know what I mean? Like, so you see all these different dynamics play out, you know, and, like, in my opinion, man, it's really starting to look like, well, we know this. We know this from, you know, fighting in other countries, where it's like, we know exactly what we're going to do once those rounds start flying, and we know exactly how we're going to maneuver and how we're going to cover and how aggressive and violent we're going to be. And the other guys are kind of like not inoculated to it, and it's a wrap, you know. But yeah, man, I just guess what I want everyone here to hear, the fact that, like, you can buy whatever gun you want, but your program, your game is only going to be as good as your software, as your programming. So.
Absolutely. And that just comes through more than likely the repetitive, boring stuff that most people don't want to do because it's inherently boring, such as spending 5 minutes a night just doing presentation from the holster, or just working reloads, or transitioning target to target, whatever it may be. And that requires, again, $0.00. It's free, and you can do it on your own in the comfort of your own home, but it takes time out of football game or the video game or hanging out with the boys. So we're not going to do it. And it's just a failure point on them. And unfortunately, it's going to come to a tipping point if and when they're put in a situation where they're going to become the victor or the victim.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the tides are probably going to be on the latter. So.
Yeah, man. And also, I think another kind of thing that maybe you can touch on, like courses. You know, you go to a course, get sped up on some new techniques. You know, I feel like courses are exposure to new tactics. Until you freaking run that trash and hit it, and it's part of your, you know, and you get some reps with it, it's not yours. You know what I mean? Like, you can't expect to run it when you're in a stressed out situation.
Absolutely. And again, I tell my clients that all the time that, you know, I wish I could say that in these 8 hours, you know, if it's one day class, 16, if it's 2, that you're going to leave these 1 or 2 days, you know, being a grandmaster USPSA champion. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
You know, I'm trying to feed you as much quality information I can in these 8 or 16 hours, but it's your job to take these drills with you now. They're yours, and practice them on your own. You come to, you know, a class for the training, but then it's on you for the practice of said training.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, it's, you know, that's why I put, you know, on the course requirements, you know, for a gear list, a notepad and pen. And people are confused about that. Like, oh, well, what do I need that for? It's like, well, so you can take down the information. What do you think? You're going to learn these skills in 8 hours and be like, all right, never have to practice that again. You know, I'm good. I downloaded it like Neo in Matrix or something, you know? That's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's not how any of this works.
Yeah, no, man. You got to be a student, man. Marine Corps. Biggest takeaway from the Marine Corps, man, that you would say that you gained from that experience that contributes to
kind of similar to you, hardening of the soul. So more specifically, like when I was a kid, I was anything of what I am today. I was, you know, I'm an only child. I didn't do typical sports. I grew up either hiking or mountain biking. I didn't do, you know, jiu-jitsu or wrestling or any of that. So as a child, I was a soft target. I was a target for the jocks or whoever else it may be. So I had, you know, I actually hated going to school until I got to high school, and then kind of found myself in my purpose. And hence, you know, I actually, you know, did the DEP program in the Marine Corps, signed up a year early. My mom had to sign, you know, when I was 17, you know, signed and all that. And that was probably one of the biggest things was, you know, to show myself, you know, that I was capable of a lot more than what was, you know, in my mind, what I originally thought was possible. Yeah. And, you know, when I was picking branches of services, you know, in my mind, when you're, you know, in high school, you know, well, it's the most elite branch. So I'm going to pick it. It's the most difficult, you know, this is why I want to do it. Yeah. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to pick the infantry. You know, I could have had other jobs, and even my recruiter said so, but I wanted to do what the Marine Corps was designed for. You know, the Marine Corps, in my opinion, isn't designed for being a cook or being in the band or any of that crap.
Right.
The Marine Corps, you know, it is in an exception. Everything else supports the infantry. You know, at the end of the day, everything that I saw when I was growing up, the you know, Marine Corps was the infantry, you know, especially, you know, in, you know, the early 2000s with the, you know, the video is still floating around. It's probably your unit's video, you know, 3-1 when they first pushed through Fallujah, that infamous, you know, video.
Breaking and that was my boys. That happened when I was at boot camp, man. They showed me that video, like duct taped our eyelids open, man. It's watched that video 100 times, man.
And let's see, another one was definitay purpose. So, you know, I didn't want to go to college. I had no reason for it, you know, I feel like I'm not going to say at all that I think the military should be mandatory, but I feel like a lot of parents push kids into college that really shouldn't be, and they're just flushing money down the toilet. Because the reality is what 17 or 18-year-old kid really knows their why or their purpose going into college. And now they're going to have to, unless they're on some type of scholarship, you know, they're going to be in debt indefinitely. You know, like I still know, you know, friends of mine that didn't go in the military that are, you know, in their mid 30s, and they're still in debt from college, and they're still paying it off, which is just insane to me. So definitely the purpose part, or the why, more or less, was, built in the Marine Corps. And I guess with that, definitely direction as well. And that's what kind of helped shape what I wanted to do, after I left the military. Like, obviously I got out in 2010. It took me about 7 years to finally go in with my why, quit my job, and start my own business. So it almost took me, a decade to do that. And most people under that amount of pressure or that amount of failure probably would have crumbled, with that, giant gap. But for me, everything takes time. And I feel like a lot of people that start on a new business venture, or, if they, let's say they start jujitsu. I use jujitsu a lot. It's a big part of my life, but, any type of martial art, they start in the gym, whatever it may be. I think people, because of the age that we live in, like, you can order something on Amazon and have it to your door the next day. Right. Because of how everything is readily available, they think that translates over to other facets, like owning your own business, like martial arts, like, getting in shape. And it's not. There is no miracle pill, regardless of the infomercials you see on TV, that will get you thin. It's going to take time. It's going to take dedication. And it's going to hurt. And I feel like a lot of people just don't want to see it, or they do, and they're completely oblivious and ignorant to it because they don't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And two other ones would be just, which is kind of a negative, I guess, for my wife, is I'm very regimented about things.
Yeah, I know, bro. You've been like, even in this process with me, you're like hitting me up. I'm like, yo, I'm getting it, man. I'm like, I'm gonna get it to you, bro.
Oh yeah,
like, right on time. Like, calling me like, so what's up? Like, I'm getting in here.
Oh yeah, like I have like, a layout of my day. I'm regimented about what I'm doing, and I get like all bent out of shape if like the kids throw something in the cog of my wheel, or something goes out of shape. My wife tells me chill out, and I get all bent out of shape about it. But
chill out.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last one would be just a general appreciation of life. A good example of this is when I first started college. I'm this 23-year-old freshman, and early morning, 8 o'clock, college classes with 17-year-old kids, and half the class never showed up at all. They just failed out of their classes. And then, you'd be walking past, the cafeteria, or, the coffee store on the way to class. People would complain about, cream instead of sugar in the coffee, or whatever, maybe these little minutia things that you just want to just slap them across, the back of the head. And that took another long time for me to just relax and breathe about, because, let's just say I didn't have the greatest exfil out of the Marine Corps. I didn't have the best leadership. So I was kind of jaded and tainted for a good while, and especially going right into college right after. I had a very vast, idea of what I think people should be like. But then obviously as you grow and you get older, I realized that it's not everybody's job to do what you or I or other people like us did. I don't want, that idiot Johnny down the street, join the military because he's just a moron and would get somebody killed, in the military. So, and not to, sound like I'm superior to anybody else, but I'd much rather myself do that than have somebody else down the street that shouldn't be going to the military do it. So if they want to complain about it, all good and well. Right. That's their right to do it. No, you just push and move on.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. Like, I'm totally tracking with you. That I think those, because, we're looking at like suicide and stuff, like guys getting out and like tapping out and stuff, that was kind of a big issue for a while. It still is, and I think that these values are kind of what we have to learn how to navigate once we get out, like big time. I think one of the big ones is, like you were saying, people's word isn't what it used to be when you're in there, and everything counts on your decisions when you're in there. But also, like, I think a big one is getting out and realizing that, no one's really got your back like your dudes had your back, like, ever again for the rest of your entire life. Realizing that, like, they don't even really know what it is to really be there a lot of times, because most civilian lives don't require that, But yeah, man, no, I totally track with you on that stuff. Those were great takeaways, man. I think for me, what I got out of it was discipline and, like you said, perspective, learning how to go hard and understanding like, yo, this is not a bad day. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like
it can always be worse.
Always.
You can always be hungrier. You can always be colder. You can always be wetter. You can always be more tired.
Exactly. It was raining on the range the other day, and guys were starting to get miserable. I was even starting to get a little bit like, I don't know how cool this is. Like, am I going to do this for real today? But then, like, this thing in my head was like, hey, bro, you get to go inside. Good to go. Like, there was this moment. I remember this every time I stayed in the field. Like, the first day, I remember literally being like, it would suck or it'd be whatever. And then, like, around, like, 8:30, I'd be like, all right, cool. And I would find myself thinking about when I when I was going home, like, yeah, and then when I get home, I want to do this, that, and the next thing. And then I remember this every time there was this moment where I'd realize, like, oh, snap. We're going to be out here for like 3 days. And this small death would happen in my stomach, like, oh, man. And then I remember being like, okay, all right, now I got to suck it up, embrace the suck, and just get it in.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
False motivation.
Yeah, dude. Define that false motivation.
Well, I mean, to be the, I feel like false motivation sometimes is necessary in times of strife or adversity, especially when you're in a group, in the Marine Corps, for instance, or just general dark humor. That's why I also had to alter not only my language when I left the Marine Corps, but also my sense of humor, because people would like look at me like a sociopath or whatever.
Sociopath,
yeah,
exactly. Like,
oh man, like what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah, right. That was dark. That's not okay.
It's like, did you just drop a dead baby joke? Like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Right? Exactly. Oh man. Okay. It's too real, man. It's too real. That's what's up. What would you say you learned? Because, like, I don't know, I feel like executive protection guys try to turn their noses up sometimes at, like, bouncers and at, like, event security dudes and stuff like that. Like, they're very different. But I felt like my time bouncing and stuff like that, I was learning that there's a lot to learn really quick, because, like, you're close quarters with a high volume of people, and if you don't do things right, you can get tightened up. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
You're dealing with mentally unstable people. By definition, if they're intoxicated, they are not even in the mental state to drive a car. You know what I mean? Were there any takeaways from that experience that you want to contribute?
Well, definitely knowing your surroundings, and I'm not going to say situational awareness, just because it's another huge buzzword in the industry that I feel like has people really don't understand the terminology. And this was brought to my attention by a good friend and mentor of mine, Craig Douglas of ShivWorks. And he basically explained it as, how do you actually aware? There's no really one definition to aware. Is it a verb, is it a noun, is it an adjective? There's really no one thing to describe what aware is. So instead, he, and now I, like to use the term task fixation. So you want to limit whenever possible task fixation, which is in a constant flux of either narrowing or broadening, depending on what you're doing in your day. Now, obviously, if you're, walking a diamond with your principal, and you're looking at your what's around you, obviously you're broadened. But let's say that you're focused more on your principal because they're talking with somebody when they're walking down the red carpet or whatever it may be. Now your focus is more narrow. So understanding it's in this constant flux, and it's not just like this 360 degree security at all times that you're going to be able to, you have eyes and back here. It's just unrealistic. And that's why I think it's funny when people are like, oh yeah, I got my back, when I go eating, go to the back to restaurant, and, I always, check my, scan my surroundings. Like, okay, well, how do you have like a healthy relationship with your significant other if you're just like constantly scanning your surroundings? You probably look like a paranoid schizo because you're looking around all the time. You probably live a very high strung and anxiety ridden lifestyle. So I'm not going to say to go around and just be like, oh, if I get ambushed, I get ambushed, but just understand that, enjoy life and just try to limit whenever possible at that task fixation. So that's probably one of the biggest things was, doing patrols overseas and you know, having that broadening of what's around you. And also, you know, working in teams, working with other people.
Yeah.
But probably one of the biggest differences is, as you probably have seen in the past, is that usually principals don't really see the need for you.
Right.
And again, depending on them, you know, they may inadvertently look down on you because they don't, again, see a need for you, and they may view as you getting in their way, and you know, may inadvertently treat you like more of a servant than an actual person that's trying to protect their life or their family's life.
Right.
So that's probably one of the other vast differences, is basically you are getting paid to get treated like dirt, which I guess is the same in the Marine Corps. So
yeah, right. No, I understand, man. I think, yeah, man. I mean, on that last one, it really comes down to like your optics, man. Like, because I've seen that wreck some dudes, especially dudes that just got out of the military, and they're like, yo, I've taken lives for more or less than disrespect. You know, they're like, yeah. I was in charge of millions of dollars of equipment, like the John Rambo speech, like these guys, you know, and you have like your honor, and you have all this stuff, and you're serving your country and whatever. Then you get out in the first civilian division, or you get into executive protection, or you get into bouncing, and you're sitting at a door, and there's some inebriated person just dishonoring,
egging you on,
and trying to get you to just yeah, you know. Or there's you know, some client, you know, some acting, singing talent or CEO who like just doesn't have time for you and treats you like you're just the chauffeur and you're the coffee getter, and you know, and
carry my luggage,
yeah, man. And you're like, you know, I guess it's definitely worth talking about how to overcome that, you know.
What would you say? I would say it all comes down to your personal humility. And I always say be humble. And a good friend of mine, Teddy, he's in a he's in a unit, in a soft unit now, currently deployed. And the best way that he said it to me, he said, yeah, sure, be humble, but let the motherfuckers know when you need to.
Yeah,
humble,
yeah.
But let them know when you need to. So it's, especially in the EP field, when you're in a corporate environment, you know, suit and tie, you're around clean-cut people, you're not around the heathens, we'll say, of the Marine Corps. You're not around baggers that are putting wads of dip in and smoking cigarettes and you know, and you know, are ready to bring the fight. You're around an individual that potentially has a large bounty on his head, or maybe has a mentally disturbed relative, or a fanboy, or somebody else that, you know, may have a threat against them, and they have never even touched any aspect of violence,
right?
Or they have never been placed in any form of adversity, because everything has been given to them on a silver platter.
Right.
And again, that's not to go and say, again, going back to the point, I'm not saying everybody needs to join the military, or, you know, be a sicko like me and jump into frozen rivers. Okay.
Yeah, dude. I was going to ask you about that, bro. Like, I was looking at your Instagram and I was like, for real, man? I was like, is this a boomerang? Because he's been in that water for like an eternity. I'm like, it's got to be a boomerang, man. Like, bro. I mean, wait, go ahead with your point. Maybe we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we can definitely go into that later, because I definitely want to bring up a whole slew of benefits with that. But probably with it just being able to swallow your pride. And I feel like, again, because of what you or I or other people in the military did, our accomplishments, it fuels this unhealthy and untouched ego in our mind. And now we left that sector, we got out of the military, we retired, whatever it may be. Yeah. And now we're placed kind of back into the civilian sector. And I think Scott Spooner, the Spooner brothers, Tom and Scott Spooner, said it best, and Tom was a former CAG guy. He said it's basically like getting out of the joint, right? I've never been to jail, so I can't say, but
I have this term called combat-tutionalized, you know, and it might be something along what you're about to say. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, so you talk to, like, I talked to my senior Marines after they got out, because they got out a year, before I did, and I hit up and be like, yo, man, so what it's like. So you can wake up whenever you want. So you like don't have to get a haircut. So like you can like drink whenever you want to. You know, it's this weird concept, and I feel like again there's this huge disparity of what civilians believe or understand that we do. And basically when you sign, you know, that line, when you take your oath and you raise your right hand, you are giving away your rights for X amount of time. And you know, it is our choice. There was nobody with a gun to my head or your head that said, you know, you have to join the military. I'm not complaining about the service I did, but it does come with a form of sacrifice that a lot of people don't understand. And once you get back out, it's like you get all this freedom at once again, just this unconstrained, unrelished, pure freedom. And you sometimes just don't know how to handle it. You're just like, wait, so I can like do whatever I want. There's staff sergeant's not going to be at my ass or being late to formation. Wait, there's no formation. You know, all these various things that it does take some time to getting used to. And of course, you know, the Marine Corps does, you know, I forget what it's called, but it's the TAPS program. Basically, they,
that
you know, and it's like a week long or whatever.
It's like a check in the box. We're like,
oh yeah,
you should not be that crazy because we did this. Now go be crazy.
Exactly. And you know, everybody there is like, well, at least I don't have to show up to formation day. I know I wasn't paying attention in that class. I was just glad that I was getting out. I didn't give a crap what they were saying there.
Exactly.
So then you push these guys out, you know, they get their DD 214, then they go back at home, and now like, all right, so go have it life. And now they're just completely lost because they're so used to getting paid on the 1st and 15th. They're so used to getting, you know, somebody tell them to go to formation, somebody tell them what to do. And now it's all on them to fulfill the rest of their life. And that's really difficult for some people.
Yeah, man. No, it takes a while to be able to readjust to that. And then who they believe they are in their mind and all that stuff is having a hard time reconciling itself with the reality of the cartoon that is civilian life. Like, there's no place. You have to find and carve out a place for your warrior ethos in the civilian.
Absolutely.
If you're not deliberate about that, that warrior inside you will start to die, and that, I believe, the atrophy of identity. And I think that's why so many warriors take their lives out here in this thing. You're like a Lamborghini cursed to drive in a school zone for the rest of your life at 25 miles an hour. You just don't know how to figure it out. So I always say you got to find your new fight. Yeah, I mean, if you got to find it, whatever that thing is, you got to hit it hard, you know, so you can just keep yourself healthy. But nah, man, what you were saying towards the beginning of that too was about the relationships with clients and civilians, even, you know, while doing security work. No, that was good. You got to let them know. Essentially, you need to define the parameters of the relationship. You know what I mean? Because like, you got to make a bed that you can sleep in for a longer period of time, and that's your responsibility, you know?
Absolutely.
I agree 100%. There have been times when I've definitely let clients go beyond the point that anyone else could ever go. You know what I mean? Just because of the optics on the relationship. I think also too, it's important to have the right optics on the relationship. It's kind of like, this job, this client represents this income that's getting me here. I love that my income allows me to do these things, create this podcast, build what I'm building on social media, and do all these things. And so that lends a lot more grace to those things. You know what I mean? You know, it makes it kind of like, okay, cool. You know what? Today was a little bit rough, but I'm one step closer to my own, you know, destiny, achieving my purpose. And I know my why. And that really, I think, if an agent can, when he's getting out of the military and he's had his honor, or he's retiring from law enforcement and he's getting into private security and he's realizing it's a service-related industry, and now he's almost like, you know, he's serving someone. If he can really get his optics on why he's doing it and how it's contributing to his life, and whether or not that contribution is worth what he's dealing with or not, then he can keep the right attitude about it, kind of probably moving forward a little more easily. Now, if you're not keeping those things in the forefront of your mind, you might be dangerous to the client, you know, depending on the client.
100%.
That's good stuff, man. What is your why, dude?
My why is to basically being able to go out in the world and not create but and not even develop, but to show others the greatness that is inside all of them. And I feel like a lot of people don't have a lot of, unfortunately, confidence in themselves or their abilities. And that shows in their everyday life, whether it be in their relationships, whether it be on the mats, whether it be in the gym, whether it be, you know, if they are an employee or they own their own business. Your confidence drives everything. And I feel like, again, that's another misconcept that people don't understand. People think that just because you have the skills or the background or the things, you know, the aesthetics, that it will propel you forward. It's the confidence in your abilities that is going to drive you forward. If that's not there, then again, just like your foundation we talked about earlier, it's eventually just going to fall apart. So my why is being able to go out into the world, go to classes, and teach people skills that obviously, you know, is designed so that they come home at the end of the day to their families, but more so is to create and develop the greatness or the confidence that is in all of them. Because again, if you can, you know, run a shooting and moving drill where you're, you know, moving in a serpentine snake fashion, is a drill I do at the end of my classes. Oh, sorry, 1 second here.
It's all good. No worries. Yo, bro.
There's a drill I do at the end of my classes called the Nokia snake drill. Okay. It was, again, developed by my good friend Teddy, and basically it involves constantly moving throughout this serpentine fashion, kind of similar to that Nokia snake game that you had, you know, on the old Nokia phones.
Yeah.
And it's all with one target of steel, and you know, can go with either pistol or rifle. And again, if you can do that drill while moving, you know, if you can shoot while moving, dealing with reloads, dealing with footwork, dealing with throttle control, then that, you know, business meeting that you've been dreading for the past month on Monday you have to deal with, it's going to be a cakewalk. And I feel like, again, people that don't understand the firearms industry, that don't understand firearm ownership, just look at a deadly tool, when in reality, it can be transferred over to so many other various concepts in somebody's life.
Absolutely, man. No, that's good, dude. I love what you said about, well, your why and my why are really like a lot alike, man, because I know where I came from. Like, I know where I came from, dude. Like, I was just a fat little black kid, man. And like, I was like running around, and like, I go to the Bahamas, all the little Bahamian kids were like, yo, he's an American. I bet he's soft. And I had to fight them every single summer, and they'd pick on me. And then I'd come back over to the US, and I was like the only black kid in my school. You know what I mean? What the white folks didn't want to fight me, but it was still like I was the only, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I just remember where I came from and where I'm at now. And like, one of the main reasons why I do what I do is a lot of what I do is I want to empower people, meaning I want people to realize the greatness they have on the inside of them. I want them to cultivate it. I believe it's everyone's number one responsibility, even before having kids, to get their greatness out, like to get this, to contribute. You know, I talked about it just this morning on one of my videos, man. Like, this whole thing's a miracle. There's a billion different things that could have happened in the womb. In the universe, this is a textbook miracle. There's no real scientific explanation for what this is, this reality and this planet. And the universe has only seen one of each and every one of us. And so, yeah, man, my whole deal is I know where I came from. I know where I'm at now. I think everyone can do things like what I'm doing. I'm not doing that much amazing stuff, but like, I have confidence and I feel good about myself. And I really like live to be able to contribute that, dude. That's awesome.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Taking that, dude. And then you were talking about confidence, and I agree with you, man. I think the confidence is everything. I think that's why it's one of the primary things women look for in a man. It's because, you know what? His ability to provide and protect me and be a good man is going to it's going to come out of his confidence. It's going to come out of his ability to go out there in the world and whip it on and fight dragons, fight bears, and go hunt things that could possibly kill him, and you know, go for that job interview. And you know,
well, it's also more or less biologically driven too. Like, a female biologically a heterosexual female wants to be with a heterosexual man, mostly based on if they can protect them or their offspring. Like, that's simple biology,
right? Yeah, nah, man. So that's huge, man. That's awesome. Combat philosophy. Do you have like I don't know, how do you look at combat? How do you look at, you know, when you're teaching and stuff, even when you're running drills, like, kind of, I don't know. What would you say your philosophy is on combat? And, you know, do you have like a when violence is the answer, it's the only answer, or how do you approach that?
I view it as, to quote, you know, a friend and author of mine, Jack Donovan, violence isn't the only answer, but it's the final answer. And, you know, with what I do and, you know, with me traveling around and teaching these classes, which obviously they're all, you know, we do fun in my class, you know, it is a collaborative learning experience. But at the end of the day, I'm teaching others skills that could inevitably change the outcome of somebody else's life. And I feel like a lot of people, again, look over that just because they like to buy the cool kit or they want to get the certificate or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, I'm teaching you literally how to kill another human being. And that's a lot of responsibility for somebody to take upon. And, you know, I've met, you know, especially with me traveling all the time, I'm obviously on flights. And of course, people sit next to me and we get in a conversation. They ask what I do, and I tell them I'm a teacher. And like, oh, what kind of teacher? They expect, you know, like an English teacher or, you know, history. Well, and I have to try to be tactful about it so I don't, you know, have the air
trigger them.
Yeah, exactly.
You already got a beard.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I look like some Russian terrorist or something.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But I explain to them that, you know, I teach aspects of self-reliance, of how to come home at the end of the day. And they're like, oh, well, I could never carry a gun. I'm like, that's fine. You know, I don't expect everybody that I meet to carry a gun. That's a lot of responsibility for somebody to have. I'd much rather somebody be like, you know what, I'm not comfortable with that. I don't want to carry, cool, versus somebody who just can carry because they can and have never taken classes. And that's where it kind of goes in with my state, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine are all constitutional carry. So yeah, it's good, but I also view it as a double-edged sword because on one end, I'm not a fan of state institutionalized training because all the states I've been to, it's very indoctrinated and has no relationship to concealed carrying. Yeah. And on the other side of the fence, yeah, it is your right, but it is your responsibility to go out there and get the training. So if you want to carry, it's all well and good, but you need to keep up with it because if not, you're being a liability to those in those people and those loved ones around you. So I feel like with what I do, I'd much rather, you know, I hope people never have to use these skills, you know, to defend themselves. I hope that because of the skills that they have, they're able to either verbalize their way out of it or just remove themselves entirely because they are limiting what we talked about earlier with that task fixation. And then the ironic part is that with the people that train as much as you or I or other people, even my students do, the probability of them ending up in a situation where they have to use a firearm to defend themselves or loved ones, teammate, partner, whatever, well, not teammate, partner, obviously they're law enforcement, they have higher probability, but themselves or their loved ones is fairly low. And the reason for that is not to get into in-depth with criminal psychology, but basically criminals, as you know, are like apex predators, right? Yeah. So they want the most amount of calories for the least amount of effort. And that's quoted by my good friend, William April. And basically something as simple as having your shoulders back, looking around you could possibly deter that average criminal. Now, obviously, if the person is mentally disturbed or, you know, a sociopath, that may be a different story. But the average petty criminal that, you know, wants your wallet, cash, your car, whatever it may be, is going to be like, you know what? That guy looks like you know what he's doing. I'm going to move on to the next person. And I'm going to go with the person with the earbuds in, hoodie on, in the iPhone, instant soft target right there. Yeah. So I feel like with my combat philosophy is that if you do have to utilize violence in the protection of yourself, your loved ones, teammate, or partner, do what is necessary to come home at the end of the day. And, you know, that may be, you know, in a unarmed or a grappling altercation where, you know, you don't have the ability to be at 2 arms reach and you need to shoot from retention. That may mean plugging the guy 8 or 10 times in the pelvic region so he drops like a sack of potatoes and you end the fight right there. That may mean getting your blade out and doing what's necessary and plugging him like a shiv, and that may mean getting, you know, excrement on you. That may mean getting dirty. That may mean having somebody else's life in your hands. And again, I feel like that's where it goes back to where mental development and mindset really comes into favor. Because again, you can have all the cool kit in the world. You can have the best gun, NVGs, you can have the coolest kit. Just like you can have the coolest, gym setup. You can have, the newest lifters, the newest straps, or, the best supplements in the world. But if you don't have that mental tenacity to continue when you're tired, when the odds are stacked against you, when you just want to quit, then it's all null and void. It's all null and void.
It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
That software is really what's going to dictate, that your resilience, your ability to be resourceful, your ability to see the gaps. If you don't have the training to be able to see the gaps and see the opportunities and capitalize on them, like all these different things. No, I dig it, man. I like that. And it really seems like surviving a violent encounter, like you were saying earlier, when you strap up, you leave your house, you're writing a blank check, whether you realize it or not. It seems like really surviving one of those encounters, it's the culmination of a lifetime of decisions that really all come, that bring you down to one moment where you either have what it takes to make the split-second decisions, or you don't, and
you're going to end up as a statistic on the news.
Yeah. Yeah. Nowadays, man, so no, I dig that, man. And I like what you said about, doing whatever it takes, and being willing to do whatever it takes. Because I think that's really what ends up, like being able to go the distance. And I think something else we got from the Marine Corps is being acquainted with violence and being able to understand, like, this is really what it might take, and being a little more inoculated to that,
Yeah. And again, not to get we were talking about before we started with philosophy and all that, but I feel like in today's day and age that people want to ignore violence as it's something that can be done away with, because we're at such a technological ridden level that we've done so much in so little time. Like if you look, what is it? Probably, I can't do math, probably 60 years ago, like in the 50s, we didn't have, the Wi-Fi or iPhones or anything like that, or even in the early 2000s, those didn't even exist. To come where we are today, and I think because of how quickly we've gone to that level, a lot of people believe that we're above violence and we can do without it. And reality is that humans have been killing other humans since we emerged from caves thousands of years ago. That hasn't changed. It will never change.
Since we found each other, literally.
Exactly. Since one dude was like, I want your food. The dude was like, no. And he was like, dude. All right, well, I'm going to club you in the face with a rock. Okay. And now he's dead.
Yeah, exactly. And this took place 96 hours after they met.
Exactly. And, the setting and the environment may have changed, but the end goal or even the tools have changed. But at the end of the day, it's still the same. One human taking another human's life, one being the victor, one being the victim. And instead of ignoring it or trying to find a solution or trying to figure out the why behind why it happens, why don't more people just start figuring out that maybe I should train and protect myself instead of allowing somebody else to dictate my safety?
Yeah. And okay, I don't know why, but I'm going to figure out how to deal with it. What would you say to that?
But I mean, that also kind of contradicts what you do for a living. So no.
That's how they chose to deal with it. They're like, you know what? I don't have the bandwidth to learn all this trash and also take over the world in my industry and win and run my company. So the way I'm going to deal with it is I'm going to have dudes who specialize in that trash. You know what I mean? And so here we are.
I'm not a peasant. I don't deal with violence. I'll have somebody else deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. I've got violence and holding my, outside of the car. Yes. No, and I love it. I love it. It's an honor to do it, But yeah, solve the problem however you can. What would you say to the guy who's like, you know what? I need to start taking my own ability to defend myself and my family seriously. Where do I start?
Honestly, the biggest factor is the average person in the firearms industry would just say, go get a gun. And I kind of view the opposite of that because obviously people, firearms are still a very taboo thing, depending on, your inter-family relationships. There's, a lot of people that I've met where they're like, yeah, my mother-in-law, she hates guns, or, I wasn't brought up in a household with guns, or this or that, or just simply, the state that you live in may be super difficult to jump through the hoops to own a firearm. And at the end of the day, the firearm isn't the only solution. Like, and I see that as a big problem in the industry as a whole, is people figuring that a firearm is the solution to everything, which it is not at all. There's plenty of other situations that you could be in where a firearm isn't the answer to be, because, the drunk guy at the bar doesn't deserve to have a bill drill drilled into his chest. He just doesn't. No. So the first thing, honestly, I would tell somebody is to start some type of grappling. And the reason why I'm specific with grappling is I've done other martial arts in the past, and nothing compares to one person battling with another person for position with constant pressure against one another. And that's where that whole adversity thing comes full circle here, with constant pressure against one person against another. Now, I don't care if it's judo, sambo, American wrestling, can wrestling, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, whatever it may be, some form of grappling. And I'm not going to say that, jiu-jitsu or grappling is the end-all martial art, because obviously you need to learn how to strike. So if you want to learn how to strike, go to a boxing gym. Muay Thai, the same with that. But as a good framework of reference, I'm a huge proponent on starting off with some form of grappling, because not only will that give you more confidence in your abilities, but it's a great workout. It builds good teamwork and camaraderie with one another, and it's a good stress reliever. Like, when I go and travel and I've missed, a week of jiu-jitsu with traveling, I come home and I'm all pent up and I'm all anxious. My wife is like, just go, just go and get choked out for 2 hours. And I come back and I'm all like happy, like everything's all fine. Chill. And you tell that to the average person, like, wait, you get stress relief from getting the crap beaten out of you? I'm like, yeah, I guess I do. And it definitely takes definitely a specific mindset to be able to pay money to a gym to basically be hammered for years on end until you get better. That's really the only way, with at least with the reference points that I have with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is getting hammered for years until you don't get hammered anymore.
Yeah. But I think it's good. It's understanding stress. Like, there's positive stress, you know what I mean? Like, there's something to be said for when you are rolling with a dude and there's something to be said for really any activity. But like, when you're on that mat, like, you got to be there, bro. You got to be present, bro. Nothing else matters. The bills don't matter. The kid's not crying right now. Yeah, I mean, like, the girlfriend, whatever it is, homie, don't get choked out. Get that position. Yeah, I mean, like, just, Absolutely. Don't move your elbow. Like, there's all these dynamics that are happening, when you're doing whatever that is. Or like, for me, like, when I'm in the gym and I'm lifting and I'm doing all my stuff, like, I'm there 100%. And it's like a mental vacation. And so it's stress, but it's this healthy stress. You know what I mean? But I think also a lot of the wisdom in what you're saying too is it's a great way to get acquainted with violence without actually doing anything that could jack you up. Yeah, I mean, like, you're getting into these soft combatives now where, you can do jits at like 85%. Or like, you're simulating murder at basically the highest, as hard as you can in a lot of, as long as you're safe, you know what I mean? But as hard as you can in a lot of ways, different sizes, different skill levels. There's respect and there's honor there. But a lot of us, I feel like, aren't acquainted with touching humans, touching other humans. And so, it puts you in a whole different mindset, and, and you can see more accurately someone's capabilities when you look at them, because you know what, you just rolled this week, you've rolled with a couple dudes like that, a couple dudes like this, you know what I mean? And you're not so much like, oh, that guy's got biceps, I'm mortified. It's like, maybe you should watch out for that, like, really efficient, like, dude, just a really efficient dude who anywhere from could be like from 180 pounds up to, 250. That's kind of like 240, 225 or dude could like hurt your feelings. I mean, like, 180 pounder who knows what he's doing could just ruin your freaking day, bro. Yeah, I mean, like, So
yeah, and you can tell when somebody has never done grappling before. Like we get every now and again you get a new guy that wants to start at the gym, and you can tell when they first start rolling they're like timid because like you said, they're not used to it's like jiu-jitsu specifically, again using point of reference, that's all I do. It's intimate violence.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to say boxing or Muay Thai or any spatial striking art isn't intimate, but to be that close to another human being, to have like a dude have you in mount and his like sweat fluids are like dripping in your eye and you're like trying to like get it out because you're like, oh God, you like drip, oh God. And it's a very intimate thing at the end of the day, and it just breaks it breaks you in a good way, and it remolds you in a good way, and it makes you more confident, and it makes you more relaxed.
Yeah.
And it just makes you just a better person. Like I've never met somebody that I rolled with that I wouldn't go out and have a drink with. Like they're all good people at my gym, just because jiu-jitsu doesn't allow dickheads, because somebody with an ego, somebody that has an unhealthy ego or narcissism, they don't last. They might show up for one, and then you won't see them ever again. Because somebody with an unhealthy ego or narcissism, they can't be in a place where they're not the alpha or the one dominating situation. They're not gonna stand too well with a dude that's half their weight absolutely wrecking them. It's just not gonna happen.
There's humility required, and it's self-correcting in a lot of ways, man. It's just like, because if your ego's out of whack and you do one or two things, like, eventually you just kind of find you're getting kind of what you deserve, and it's healthy. It's healthy discipline. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And, yeah, man. No, I need to do more of it. I can't speak too affectatiously on it. Yeah, man. I need to get my hand-to-hand game is where I would say that I'm lacking. I've been like in and out of things. I haven't committed to the path yet. But yeah, no, 100%. I think that one of the first things that a civilian would want to understand is violence. They need to understand what it takes, like you said, like be willing to do whatever it takes to come home. But like, I think one of the huge advantages that we have on people, and that I've had on people a lot of my life, because I had to fight a lot growing up, is I understand, I'm acquainted with violence. We're acquainted with violence. We understand how intense, how quickly, and how dynamic you have to be, and I think a lot of civilians don't really understand that. And I think that one understanding, even that one understanding can give you quite an edge in a situation.
Absolutely. And, you can run a gun all day and, be the quickest out of the holster, but it's a cardboard target. It's not a living, breathing human being that's trying to attempt to stop you
and kill you
doing that movement.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not, and again, this isn't, it's not that I'm talking smack on, what I do for a living, but I just feel like there's a lot of disparity with it. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance as to people's abilities, just because they haven't really truly been tested against a formidable foe in a safe environment.
Right. Boom. That was very well put. What would you say? that was like, I'm set this perfectly right there. That's good. What would you say about, drop the mic. What would you say about instructors? What should people look for maybe in an instructor before like learning under them, studying under their tutelage? How
they teach, how they bring information across. Because again, I've been in classes either as a student or an adjunct instructor or just an observer, where they are shit hot at demonstrating the drills. Like, they are top of the line shooters. Everything is crisp. But when they try to explain it, they sound like a crow magnet that's been like thawed out from like the ice. They literally just do it. Like the epitome of a Marine crayon eater. Like, this is how you do it, dragon. Just like
then you do it, and you just do this and that.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, all right. And then they just have you just do the drill, and you're like, am I doing this right? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then you leave at the end of 8 or 16 hours, and you're like, did I just waste my money? Didn't really get anything out of this.
Yeah.
Versus the person who has the one-on-one time with you that actually educates you based on the way that you learn
where you're at.
And they may not be the best shooter. Like, for an example, I can tell you first and foremost, I am not the best shooter that is out there. I have had plenty of students in my class that can outshoot me, and that's all well and good, because at the end of the day, I'd much rather me give them everything and have them outrun me than me not give them everything and have me still outshoot them. Because what does that do for me? That's like me as the blue belt in class absolutely hammering the white belts and be like, yeah, man, I got that arm bar. And it's like, first class, like, what does that do for me other than feed my unhealthy ego?
Yeah.
So it's definitely a balance. But, you know, it also shows me if they do outshoot me, it instantly shows me that I have stuff to work on. And that's like we talked about in the very beginning about constantly chasing that unattainable perfection.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Having a real awesome relationship with it, you know. And I think, like, when I think about perfection, it's like I'm always looking for that perfection. I'm always looking for my potential, but like I'm practicing for permanence too. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to get a new, better permanent. That's like what I'm always looking for, man. It's
like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but never getting to it. And the only time you get to it is when you're on your deathbed.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, I mean, seriously, man. And what you're saying about the instructor game is awesome, because there are dudes, like there are people that maybe don't perform or maybe don't perform anymore, you know, at the level that some of us can now, but like the information, the knowledge, what can you do with the knowledge that's being imparted based on at your level? If you're humble enough to listen, you know, if you're humble enough to absorb that information and then apply it, you know, like, boom, what does it mean for you as an individual? You know, what it might mean for me and what it might mean for someone who's at another skill level beyond mine. The differences can be tremendous, but absorbing that information and being taught that information in a way that's going to better my life or better your life, that's what a good instructor will do. And they're bringing their life experience, right?
And it's just simply just creating a relationship with them versus them just being this, you the instructor, them as the students. Actually being cohesive and creating a relationship out of it, like being able for them to leave after that 8 or 16 hours and you to actually build a relationship, like you know, for them to hit you up in the DMs on Instagram, be like, hey man, how's your day going? How's those drills going? Instead of it just being like you being above them, like, oh, they can't come and talk to you, you know, when they're reloading back the line during the class, or they can't come over and talk to you during lunch or whatever. And that's where I feel like there's a huge disparity again in the community, where people feel that they need, you know, that to create this harsh line of instructor and student. And obviously there does at some point during the class, you know, you can't be, you know, dropping jokes and, you know, having this non-formal you know, relationship in class. But at the same time, you can't make them feel uncomfortable enough that you obviously won't have a returning customer.
Right. 100%. And I dig it. That's something else that I always keep in mind too when I see instructors and I go to courses is like, hey, look, man, like, you know, the way the world works now, this dude's got to walk the line between proficiency and participation. And like, he's here to teach people stuff, but like, how do I say this? They also need to have a positive experience. And so he probably isn't, it's not good for him to go as hard on into some things or in certain ways as he would if we were like, say, in the military or somewhere else, or be able to bring everyone up to a certain level. You know what I mean? So I always pay attention to that and try to, like, I don't know, maintain my own standards within kind of what's going on, because I imagine that instructing, you're in kind of a weird spot a little bit. You know what I mean? Like between the business and you're trying to get these high level skills across, but like you might not always have like people that appreciate that, you know what I mean? But you're still running a business, you know? I don't know.
I mean, I haven't really come across that too much. All the students I've had in my class are all open to
getting after it.
They're all open. Oh yeah, they're all open to push themselves, because I definitely attract a certain clientele per se. Obviously, the persona I give off on social media is going to be the same in class, and I feel like people think that there's going to be this huge disparity, this huge difference in regards to how I am on the interwebs versus how I am in real life, and there's not. I'm literally the same person. I have no reason to create this shadow or this cloud of difference, just because again, in this industry, I feel like there's too much of that, and there's no need for it. Like, if you are true to yourself, true to your passion, true to your profession, why are you going to create two different personas? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, 100%. What would you say about training firearm skills outside of the range? Do you need a range to become more proficient?
I definitely feel like with the actual, with like drills that involve cycling of the gun, such as, like recoil management, or we'll say mechanical offset with the rifle, stuff like that, where you can actually see, how the rounds are impacting. Yes. But for mechanics and isolation, such as the draw stroke, such as mounting the rifle, such as reloading, whether it be with a rifle or a pistol, such as driving the rifle or the pistol to the new target, breaking your eyes out of the sights and moving to the new target, that or movement, that can all be done dry fire in your house, in your yard, in your living room per se. I do it all the time. There's certain things that can be done without live ammunition. But obviously the danger to that is just getting sucked into that. And the next thing you know, you're like, wow, it's been a month and I haven't even been to the range yet. Yeah. So that's where the danger lies. Just like the danger lies is always relying on range time, when you can get more and you can have more of an advantage by using your time wisely. And maybe instead of, going out to the park with the boys, maybe spending an extra 10 minutes a night and just doing those dry fire drills, setting a par timer on your timer and saying, all right, can I mount my rifle and do a reload and drop the bolt in, 2.5 seconds and set the par time and work, do just very simple things like that. And again, it's completely free. It doesn't cost any ammo. It doesn't require you to leave your house. It can all be done, you can do in your pajamas for all I care,
Yeah, that's why we call it underwear hours. Me and my buddies call it underwear hours, because it's like you're at your house.
And again, the other danger lies is if you've never been to a class to build that foundation and you're relying on only dry fire time. Because again, if you don't have a foundation or a reference point to base that off of, your dry fire could inadvertently be building bad habits because you didn't have a coach or a teacher to tell you if you're doing, X right or wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quality reps, quality time, quality habits.
Exactly.
How do you gauge that if you're just like, it's just you in the mirror kind of thing?
Exactly.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. Last few questions. We answered a few of these. What would you say, what are you most excited about teaching right now? What are you most excited about contributing right now?
Probably my excited class I'm most excited to teach, but is my most unpopular, is my points-driven strategies class. It's roughly based off of, again, my friend mentor Craig Douglas. He offers a coursework called Edge Weapons Overview. Mine is points-driven strategies. The overall concept is the same. It's basically adapting wrestling with edge weapons. So there's been plenty of times where I'm out having drinks and I obviously can't carry, or I'm in a place where I can't carry, but I have a blade on me.
Yep.
And people, and I've done very traditional types of blade work out there in the past to build my framework of reference. And it works, but it just takes many years to master. And for the average consumer, the average client I have in my class, it's probably the only blade class they take, this year or ever.
Yeah.
So I want the most robust and useful skills in those 8 or 16 hours, depending on what coursework that I'm teaching. And it's basically adapting modern Greco-Roman wrestling, or ancient, I guess, however you want to look at it, into plugging in a blade. So understanding posture, position, hand control, and then very bluntly, how to get a blade out or an implement, and how to put the point into the adversary multiple times until you get the illicit result that you desire. So people always ask, like, oh, what's the best, blade system out there? I'm like, you want to know what the best blade system is? Go on to YouTube and type in prison fight or prison knife fight.
The freaking MMA of knife fighting, real world. This is where you stab people with trash that ain't sharp. And
I can guarantee you that those guys aren't like a Grand Turo in, some some, escrima or
Right.
whatever it may be. They just know, okay, I formed this piece of plastic into a tip. That's a piece of flesh. I'm going to put this into you multiple times until I get what I want out of you, or you're dead, or both. Who cares?
Yeah. No spin moves, no magical hands.
So that's basically how I adapt that coursework. We spent basically the first couple hours of the first day going over the criminal psychology, like we briefly talked about, pre-assault cues, stuff of that nature, how to verbalize with somebody.
Yeah.
And then we work in, okay, verbalization has failed. Now, how do we get into understanding how to work posture and how to, work escapes and tie-ups and all that jazz? And now how do we plug in a blade from a defense standpoint? And now how do we plug in a blade from an offensive standpoint? So that's probably my most exciting course I like to teach, just because it's very hands-on, because it's very small, minutiae stuff that if you do one thing wrong, it's not going to work. So being able to jump around student to student and just see how people work and move, different people work and move, it definitely pushes my limits as a teacher to see how I need to change things up, or how I need to better explain things. But unfortunately, most gun people don't want to pay X amount of money to spend 1 or 2 days to have the crap beaten out of them. So it's my most unpopular, unfortunately, but it is my most favorite to teach when I do get the time.
That's what's up, man. That's funny. That's good, though. Yeah. That's good stuff, man. Because, okay, executive protection dudes, you're going to another country, you're not carrying. You're on a plane, you're not carrying. You're in an airport, you're not carrying. You're any of the multitudes of places that you're going to be, venues. Can you carry in the club? Do you got contacts like that? Should you carry in the club? You know what I mean? Here we go. You're probably not carrying. So this stuff is good to know, good to understand.
Absolutely.
Able to be decisive with that in that game. Heck yeah, man. That's awesome. If you were going to give one takeaway to pistol dynamics for the listeners, what would you give them? A paramount piece of information.
Like, what do you mean pistol dynamics specifically?
Uh-oh. So, if you're going to say something like, hey, when dealing with a pistol, what's one rule that you think is one of the most important things for someone to consider when it comes to just pistol marksmanship that maybe doesn't get enough is talked about as much, or, something that people should be paying attention to when they're manipulating their pistol?
Definitely grip and trigger are one of the biggest failure points when it comes to inaccuracies with pistols. So either with a grip that's too tight, you're going to, end up inadvertently pulling that shot because you're one knuckle death gripping the gun. Obviously too loose, you're going to, you're not going to allow the slide to function properly. And then being unfamiliar or intimate with your trigger per se is also going to allow you to have inaccuracies on the target. So understanding where the travel and the wall is in your trigger and how to manipulate that properly, because a lot of people you'll see they'll touch the trigger and then they'll slam it to the rear, and then you have that pulling of the shot. So being able to draw that pistol, track that trigger to the wall as you're presenting it, is going to take out any variable of you inadvertently pulling that shot. So then when you break that shot, there's no variable whatsoever of that travel. You're breaking it, limited reset, breaking it, limiting reset. So you have in theory, not a light trigger, but a trigger with zero travel, because you're intimate enough to know how your trigger is set up. And obviously everybody is set up different. Some people have stock, some people have aftermarket, some people 1 pound, 2 pound. Some people this connector, that connector. So it all depends on how your trigger is set up and a practice with it. And that's why getting that dry fire rep in of getting the pistol out, tracking it to the wall, and then when those sights align, break the shot, reset the slide, put it back, and just do multiple reps like that will allow you to get more familiar with how your trigger is set up per se.
Heck yeah. Okay. No, I totally dig it, man. Yeah. No, that's good stuff. Good gouge considerations, y'all. Daily ritual that you believe makes you better at what you do.
I was hoping you were going to say this, because now we can go into that
ice water, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, I'm seriously, you were acting like it was a jacuzzi.
Okay. All right. So it's almost been a year at this point. A friend of mine I did jujitsu with introduced me to this guy named Wim Hof. He's this guy from Holland. There's a whole there's a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube. Vice actually did a really good documentary on him, and they call him the Iceman. And the reason for that is because he found a way through breath work that he is able to scientifically control his autonomic nervous system. So autonomic meaning usually that obviously you have no control over it. And he found a way through breath work and meditation that you can control that, which will in turn control your overall health. So I obviously thought it was BS at first. Obviously did my research first and foremost, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. He has a free app that you can download. Basically consists of breath work consisting of 30 or so breaths in and out. And then the last breath you exhale halfway and basically you hold it. So it's basically controlled hyperventilation. And through that, you're oxygenating your muscles and creating it more alkaline than acidic. And obviously, you know, I'm not a scientist. I may get the verbiage wrong, but overall, it creates an internal fire in you, so to speak, which makes you warmer. And then by contrasting it with the ice shower, first of all, the cold water benefits are huge to begin with, and in regards to overall health, circulation of your blood vessels, virility for men. It's basically obviously taking like a shot of caffeine, obviously, if you're not a coffee person.
Oh yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
And also, if you do it before you go to bed, your body sleeps at a lower temperature better anyway. So if you were to do it before you go to bed, you're going to sleep like a baby. But the biggest thing is, for me, it's developing that mental tenacity. Yeah. Because obviously, if you try this, you know, if you're the first time trying this, you want to get out immediately because your body's like, this is cold, I want out of here. So it's fighting that fight or flight type mindset that your body is giving off. So being able to sit in ice shower, because obviously when I first started out, I would start with a warm shower and then turn it down at the end for like 30 seconds, a minute, and then slowly bump it up from there. But now I can just turn it on just at the minimum setting and just jump right in. And while I'm doing that, I'm in the moment. I'm focusing, I'm breathing, doing this breath work as I would, you know, before I jumped in the shower. Because if not, if I get unfocused for a second, I start shivering, I start shaking. But the minute I start refocusing, I focus on the breathing, it's just like a normal shower to me. Yeah, it's cold, but I really can't feel it at all.
The way that you would
anymore at all. And every now and again I try, like last winter I did it once. This winter I'm going to try it again. Obviously I did it once so far with the river down by my house, and it was 17-degree air temperature outside when I did that. Did the breath work beforehand, went down there, jumped in. I stayed in for 4 minutes. The only reason I didn't stay in longer was because regardless of the control of your body, the first thing that's going to go in that temperature of the water is going to be, you know, the movement of your hands and your feet. And the current was so strong that I'm like, if I stay any longer, I'm going to be, I can't feel anything. Like, I just felt I had just nubs for like hands. I couldn't grip anything. So I just stayed in there for that amount of time because I felt like I was going to be taken away by the rush of the current. But honestly, the hardest part of that wasn't the actual getting in and sitting there. Is actually thawing back out and that blood coming back to my hands, my feet. Because as you know, when you're cold and the blood comes back, it's like a burning sensation. Yeah. But yeah, there was lots of that. But it's actually very freeing. It's a really difficult explanation. It's something that I've never experienced before in regards to being able to start my day out like that every day, jumping into a 3 to 5 minute ice shower every single morning, and knowing that if I can do that first thing in the morning without any breakfast, without working out, just doing breath work and then jumping into that, anything that encompasses my life for the rest of the day or for the rest of the day is going to be a cakewalk.
And kick rocks. So, that's exactly true, man. No, I understand that. I don't take cold showers, bro. I'm from the Bahamas. I will be the first to admit I'm so bad at cold, bro. Like I have two modes. I have like silly villain mode where like if it's cold, I'm like miserable. I'm putting hats on and everything. Like I'm good. I ain't never gonna be a little bee about it. You know what I'm saying? I just don't do cold. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I got the other modes still. Like if I'm stuck, like we got to freeze tonight, like I'll just sit there and be quiet and probably go a little bit internal, like just be miserable until it's over, you know?
Yeah.
But, man, what you're talking about in terms of mental and emotional strength, as a stinking like habit, in terms of the way that that'll inoculate you to pain, inoculate you to stress, that habit is legit, bro. Like it's just gonna being able to sit there, discipline, control your body, sit in that environment that's so uncomfortable, and just, my dad used to get me to do this when I was little. He's a fan, actually, and I hate that you make it sound so good. I genuinely hate that you make it sound so legit, because I know tomorrow when I get in the shower, there's gonna be a moment where I'm gonna look at the cold knob, the cold button, and I'll be like, I ain't doing it though. Probably it's gonna take like months of this in here, like thinking about it and messing with it, and be like, yo, you know, you're acting like little, you know, you need to just do it right before I do it, but nah, man, that's really good.
And the breath work as well has really helped out my overall fitness and jiu-jitsu as well. Being able to focus on each individual breath and being able to basically hold your breath, even though when your body is telling you that you need to breathe, because even though there's like that, because you're basically, I hate to say dry land drowning or, hyperventilating yourself.
Yeah.
But the reality is that when I first started out, I could hold my breath for maybe like a minute and a half. And I think last month or so, I held it for 4 minutes flat on, probably a quarter lung full of air.
Wow.
And that's just through being able to focus on each breath, being able to understand that, this is fine. I can take a breath if I need to, but being able to push past that mental boundary. Because like anything else, whether it be shooting, whether it be fitness, business, whatever it may be, this is the defining factor. Yep. If you can't push past this, then like we talked about before, it doesn't matter. It's all null and void.
Freaking glass ceiling, man. You're done training. Yep. Glass ceiling. You
absolutely
stop where you quit, man. No, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. I'm gonna consider that habit.
I am telling you. Go on.
And what was the name of the?
Check it out. Wim Hof. WIMHOF. And the scientists obviously didn't believe him at first, so they actually injected him with a virus, like a cold. Like they were like, we'll see if you can fight off this cold. And he fought off. So obviously that's like, well, you're a freak of nature. So they had 12 of his, hate to say followers, that sounds like a cult, but basically people that trained under him. They did the same thing.
Yeah. Awesome.
And he swam under a sheet of ice, like in the Arctic. They cut out a hole in the
They're like, we're going to kill this fool. They're like
yeah, and he swam under to the other end, like they cut out a hole in the other end. He said the only thing that his actual retinas froze up. He couldn't even see anything halfway through there. But he came out completely unfazed. His temperature of his skin was unchanged.
I gotta look into this, bro.
I'm telling you, dude. Like I'm not one to drink the Kool-Aid with anything,
bro.
But
this is some new stuff, man. But that's that's the game. I mean, if you look at, I was in this knockout conversation with one of my buddies and we talked about all kinds of stuff, but we were sitting there kicking it and he was like talking about the placebo effect. And I was like, yeah, dude. But the thing about the placebo effect is it's a thing. Like, it's really a thing. Like, like your body, like, even if you get into epigenetics and what controls your genes and unlocks genes and controls your body on a cellular level, biochemical level, if you look at someone who's a hypochondriac, the placebo effect and the nocebo effect is some trash your body actually responds to. That's why it's in the studies, because you can give someone a chalk pill or sugar pill and be like, yo, this is going to cure your cancer. This right here is going to cure you. And they get cured, so. And
again, it goes full circle again with that belief in yourself and the confidence in yourself. If you believe it, and I'm not going to say that holds completely true. Like, obviously, if you believe you can create a time travel machine, it's a different story. But with stuff like that, I feel like a lot of people would be happier in their life if they believed more in themselves. If they believed that they could go out there and start their own business and stop, or stop caring about other people's opinions, start believing more in themselves, there'd be a lot more happier people in the world.
Honestly, and with what you're talking about too, one last thing on that, confidence comes from experience. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, you're going to your job that you hate and you're dealing with these people that you're afraid of and you're cowering. Maybe you're like in a place where, you know, you're a little bit fear-based, fear-driven. Go ahead and take a cold shower, brah. And then realize, hey, you know what? It didn't kill me. It did suck, but I stayed there. And like, I'm telling you, if you can start having these little victories, it will change the whole entire way you look at and drive through and deal with life, you know? So, that's a great way to inoculate yourself, man, and get stronger internally, man. That's good stuff. I'm gonna look up that doctor, man.
I'm gonna send you the link after this.
Do it, man. Do it. Heck yeah. Cool, man. And then I was looking on your website, something that caught my attention too, remote coaching. What was that about?
Yeah, so this is actually this isn't anything new in regards to how I go about it. I've seen other people do in the past, but I actually do remote coaching with my fitness coach. He lives out in Washington State. He was one of my students when I was out teaching in Oregon last year. And him and I hooked up, and he's been doing my teaching remotely for my fitness stuff for almost a year at this point. Yeah. And I figured, why not translate the same idea over to firearms? So basically, it's a package, 30, 60, or 90 days, depending on, you know, what your bank accounts can support. Yeah. And it comes down to majority of it being dry fire, with a small amount of time being live fire. And that's obviously because someone's coming to me for remote coaching because they can't get to the range as much as they want, whether it be family, work, money, whether they're in the middle of sticks like Alabama or Mississippi, somewhere in the middle of nowhere where they don't have the ability to go to a range, go to a class. So they want some quality training. So it's all, I actually use the app that my coach uses for my fitness stuff. It's actually a fitness app where I can plug in whatever drill I want. I can, and they basically record themselves, they upload it, and then I break it down with the Coach's Eye app. So you've probably seen that Coach's Eye app before. It's basically a video app that football coaches use, or any other really.
What's it called? The
Coach's Eye.
Okay.
And you're basically able to slow it down, do voiceover over the video, and like draw on it to like, especially with like, say, like Olympic weightlifting movements, like the snatch or the clean, to show like, if your lines are clean or if you're bending back too much, stuff like that. So I do the same thing with firearms. Is your presentation clean? Can you make the reload better? Stuff like that. And then I send it back to them for critiquing. Awesome. So basic stuff like that. Yeah.
Dude, that's really cool. That's cooler than I thought it was going to be. That's cool, man. Heck yeah. All right. Sweet, man. Well, dude, it's been awesome talking with you, man. I guess, what are you up to now? Where can people find you? Shameless plug time. Plug away.
Sure. So my website is runenationllc.com. On there it has my current up-to-date course calendar for 2019 so far. I have 27 classes slated for this year, all across the United States. I already did my first one this year in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My next one up is at the end of this month. I'll be in Casa Grande, Arizona. And then from there in March, we got Colorado, Kentucky, and Oregon out in the Pacific Northwest. And I try to do about 2 to 3 classes a month, and that also incorporates local classes here I do in my hometown. And then obviously I'm also going to be doing some closed enrollment law enforcement only classes as well. But all that stuff is up on the website. For my social media, my Instagram is Runenation LLC, Facebook is Runenation, Twitter is Runenation LLC. I really don't use my Twitter, just more kind of post stuff from my Instagram on there. But I'm very good about answering my emails or DMs. So if you have a question on anything, gear, classes, whatever it may be, hit me up. I'll be more than welcome to answer all the questions that you got there.
Awesome, brother. Yo, it's been good talking with you, man. It's been real good talking with you. It's an honor having you on the show, brother.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Heck yeah, man. Thanks for coming on and hanging with us again. All right, brother. I will see you out there on the interwebs. Check this guy out, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome philosophy behind all the stuff that he's teaching, and I think that's ultra valuable too, man. Because a lot of guys, it's just not being so one dimensional. You know what I mean? It's being a well-rounded practitioner. So I definitely respect that. Yo, one last question, man. One of my favorite things that I saw that you had that really drew me to you is this slogan: "No one's coming to save you, brother. No one's coming to save you. What's that about?
So obviously, when I created Runenation, I just really wanted some type of quick slogan saying, or whatever it may be, that really kind of summed up what Runenation is all about in regards to the training philosophy, mindset, whatever terminology you want to use. And I really feel like that statement really encompasses everything as a whole. And the reason for that is because, like we talked about earlier, I feel that too many people rely on somebody else to determine the longevity of their life, whether it be a fitness coach, whether it be, and again, this isn't to take on somebody such as you with your job or law enforcement, but I feel like at the end of the day, it is your responsibility for your own life, whether it be to eat healthier, whether it be to learn forms of protection to defend yourself or your loved ones, whatever it may be. It is in your hands. And it's just a lack of accountability in a majority of people. They want to point fingers when things aren't going their way. They want to blame somebody else, when in reality, the person that's at fault is the person that's looking at them in the mirror. And I feel like, again, too many people lose sight of that because it's so much easier in the end to point fingers at somebody else or to try and find a reasoning why this is happening instead of just accepting that everything is your fault, whether it be, bad relationships, whether that be bad business, whether it be, you didn't get a PR, whether it be you choked on the mat, whether it be you're failing at your business, whether you're, crappy qualification test at the range, whatever it may be, it is your fault.
Yep.
And because of that, the reality is no one is coming to save you, whether it be your life, your loved one's life, your teammate, or your partner. So in the end, it's all up to you when it comes to defining forward action and becoming a better individual every single day.
Heck yeah, brother. That is what's up, man. I totally dig it. I think there should be, I'm with Viktor Frankl on this, there should be a statue of responsibility on the East Coast or on the West Coast to balance out the Statue of Liberty, because with all this freedom we have, bro, responsibility is required. Otherwise, freedom without responsibility is death. You know what I mean? And the cops are going to show up afterwards, and no one's going to win for you in life. No one's going to get you where you need to go. You know what I mean? Most of them are glad you have the problems you have. The other half of them are glad it ain't them. You know what I mean? And I love that because it's something that I talk about all the time, man. Like, your mommy and daddy lied to you. Like, no, you're special. But unless you figure out how to unlock that and, like, do something with it, you're just going to die special and not having done anything. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's the reality of life, man.
Exactly.
Heck yeah. No, I honor that. I appreciate that. And personal protection is an individual's own responsibility. You got to get food, water, shelter, and you got to be able to protect that trash and keep it. You know what I mean? Like, so that's much respect for that, Ian. I love that stuff. I love that.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
I might get a tattoo on that somewhere. You know what I'm saying? But all right, boom.
You got to pay me 5% every year.
Yeah, right. You have that tattoo. That's what's
exactly.
Up. Okay, heck yeah. Boom.
Boom. And to support this podcast, go to executiveprotectionlifestyle.com and contribute to our Patreon account. That Patreon account is what helps me make this podcast possible, contributing to this brand, what we're doing here, making it so that I can bring better guests on, making it so that we can plan more events and just expand the contribution to the private security industry, and also to making America a safer place by teaching people how to protect themselves and the mindset behind that, the lifestyle behind that. You guys are already killing it. $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever you can do that you know you would probably just lose in the mattress anyway or spend on McDonald's. Hey, you want to put it towards something that's going to good use, put it towards a podcast, and get involved in our Patreon account at executiveprotectionlifestyle.com. And if you want to find me, that's ByronRogersMotivation.com. Do whatever you can, contribute whatever you can to that Patreon account, because it makes all of these things possible, ladies and gentlemen. So much love. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you for making those contributions. You guys rock. We're already doing amazing there, and it's just because of you guys. So thanks once again for those contributions. Boom! I hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. This whole entire thing actually just started off as a Facebook group that blew up and is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing, executive protection Facebook group online. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group, join the Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram and check us out at executiveprotectionlifestyle.com. If you want to find me, that's ByronRodgersMotivation.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as well. So until the next podcast, y'all, stay sharp out there. And as I say it, one mind, many weapons. Talk soon. Out.